Welcome to the Contract Teardown Show from Law Insider, where legal experts tear down contracts from some of the most well-known companies and high-profile executives around the world.
In this episode, entertainment attorney Julia Holt walks us through Cardi B's license agreement. So, let's tear it down. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Contract Teardown Show from Law Insider. I'm Mike Whalen. Today, I am hanging out with Julia Holt. Julia, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you today, Mike?
Very good. I'm excited because we are going to talk about a document that is super relevant to me, being a super famous influencer and online personality at the level of Cardi B. I am often called the Cardi B of contracts. So this is super relevant. We're talking about a license agreement that involves Cardi B. Tell us what this thing is, Julia. When are we going to see this kind of document?
So we're going to see this kind of document when artists are involved with an endorsement or a sponsorship deal. This document is the agreement Cardi B had with Whip Shots, which is an alcohol-infused whipped cream product that she is promoting.
Yeah, I'm just lingering on the idea of me as the Cardi B of contracts. And if I were, what kind of alcohol-infused products would I support? Well, Julia, before we dig into this document, tell us about you. You're in New Orleans. Tell us about your practice.
So I have my own entertainment IP startup practice, and I've been having my own practice for about a year now. I was an entertainer for about 10 years, working in the music industry and the film industry, and now here I am advocating for entertainment professionals and creative entrepreneurs.
Perfect. All right, you're the right kind of nerd for this thing, so let's dig into it. I am going to start at the beginning with this license agreement. You mentioned that it is Cardi B and this company. If I'm understanding the relationship correctly, this company wants to go say, this is Cardi B's favorite alcohol-infused whipped cream product, as if there are several of them. And so they are trying to dictate terms in terms of how they can speak about that relationship. Am I understanding kind of broad picture what we're doing here?
You got it. Yeah,
right.
That's exactly what it's going over.
Well, let's jump then to the substance of it. I'm going to go to 1.1 license grant. As with a lot of these sections, I mean, there's a lot of text here. We'll talk about the relationship later, but it is clear that the person who drafted this really wanted to get some control over how Cardi B's name was used. Tell me about section 1.1 and the grant of this license.
So this is basically stating that anything that's now used as promotional tools, whether it's billboard, social media, television, all of that's covered in this agreement, and this is going to allow Cardi B to give approval over those types of promotions.
Yeah, and it says that the licensee is going to be solely responsible for retaining a PR agency to manage all of the PR. And so it's interesting how they're really trying to professionalize this, right? And I don't know anything about this particular company, but I assume this is a fairly small company. This screams that Cardi B is saying, we do not play with small timers. You need to go run this like a professional relationship. When I jump down to 2 and the approvals, again, a fairly long section where her lawyers are saying, you don't just get to go use my name. Talk to me about the approval section and how they're creating limits on the use of the name.
Yeah, so anything that comes out of this deal, any type of promotion, Cardi B has to approve, and she can't allow anything with her image on it, any video, any type of flyer that goes out. She needs to be willing to see a copy of that, and they have to make adjustments if she doesn't agree with what she's promoting. And this also states that she has to approve of the media outlets on which everything's released as well. She can't just have it to something that doesn't match her brand. And that's the control that the lawyers wanted her to have. And I think it's very artist-friendly on her behalf to be able to approve of everything that goes on her limits. And we don't see that very often. A lot of company control happens with these type of deals to state what comes out when.
Yeah, and even though there are, exceptions to this, one sentence that I found fascinating, it says, licensees shall have no right to pass through rights granted in the licensed properties to third parties, including retailers, without licensors' prior written approval. That's super interesting to me because I'm imagining a situation where I go into a liquor store. Again, don't know where this is sold exactly, but I go into a liquor store. You're used to seeing kind of posters or cutouts with famous people standing next to the product and whatever. It sounds like she's saying, okay, even if you're going to go sell it face to face, like that's where my face being in front of people really matters. This ability to limit third parties is really strong.
Yes, absolutely. Like, no one can use her likeness, her name, without any type of approval. She needs to have a copy of it before anything is disseminated.
Well, you see a lot as we go through the contract, stuff that we've talked about before. We had a previous episode I mentioned to you where we talked about Shaquille O'Neal's relationship with Papa John, so I would encourage you to go back and watch that episode as well. Some of the sections that we talked about there that we're not going to go over here are things like the licensor obligations and the compensation and the term and those things. Something that I wanted to point you to, though, was down in 12. Let's say the relationship has ended, right? Whatever the term is, for some reason, either the term is wrapped up or there was under the termination section they agreed to end it. If I look down in section 12, it's called PostTermination Rights. 12.1 says, upon expiration or termination of this agreement, licensee shall promptly pay licensor for the accrued royalties and will immediately cease using the licensed property for any purpose, provided that licensee shall have no obligation to remove any materials containing the licensed property from the social media accounts, but they can't repost, reshare, pin, highlight, otherwise post things beyond the term. So it sounds like they're sort of balancing the reality of the permanence of the internet, right? Mm-hmm. That we know some things are going to still be out in the ecosystem. You know, you can go on these, what's the app called where you jump in a time machine and go back and see old posts. Like, it's always going to live there. They're allowed to have that there. What do you think about this section and this? Obviously, she's going to get paid for accrued monies, but how they're using the properties after the term.
I think this part's really interesting to me as well because it's saying, well, if we don't have a relationship with each other, no, you can't reshare the stuff that we've done or share like some bloopers of stuff that we've done before that I hadn't had a chance to look over. Like, you need to take those things down or you just need to leave what you already have because we no longer have a deal here.
Yeah, that's an interesting relationship, right? And it's almost like they're treating the retweets as a derivative product, right? Like, again, mm-hmm. in the Shaq episode, we talked about, derivative products also need approval. You can't just take this interview, like you said, and put bloopers up or repurpose in a blog post or whatever. They're treating retweets, just any kind of exposure, as a derivative product. Don't use that. I think that's interesting how that's adapted to sort of the internet context. Well, let's jump down finally to Schedule A. I'm going to jump down to number 8, a guaranteed minimum royalty. This is fascinating, too. Subject to the licensor doing what she's supposed to do, the licensee will pay a guaranteed minimum royalty in quarterly installments, and each contract period as follows. First of all, this is a sign that I am not, in fact, the Cardi B of contracts because I don't have this section. Listen to this. You have to pay $550,000 in CP1, $1,100,000 in CP2, $1,650,000 in CP3. The guaranteed minimum royalty due to licensor in connection with CP1 shall be satisfied by the payment of an advance. I mean, this lady is making cash. What do you think about Section 8 in here?
Yeah, I think this is something, instead of just giving the artist all the money up front for doing the deal, structuring it by year or in certain quarterly payments, that's ideal, to allow the business relationship to go for a longer period of time instead of someone just like ditching the project. So that's one side of it, but also the fact that, that's a lot of money. That's something that an artist would like dream of having, just like, oh, I'm going to go promote this product and then I don't have to do too much, like, in regards to promoting the product. It's a commercial here or there, it's a promotion online, it's some billboards, but like, that makes or breaks a year for an artist having some kind of sponsorship.
Well, but I was interested in your input on the context because this is Cardi freaking B, right? Like, this is not the everyday Joe. And we've seen in other episodes, artists are kind of flailing to figure out how to make money, just how to adapt to the context that we're in. We even had a conversation previously about an NFT, right? Like how to get people to take these songs that were released and invest in these NFTs as an investment product. I mean, here's an artist just trying to turn fandom into some kind of revenue stream. You and I had talked before about kind of the shifts in the way the Grateful Dead changed the way concerts made money, the way iTunes changed the way the music industry, obviously what Napster did with its impact on making money. Artists shifting to live events. You saw this obviously with the whole Taylor Swift fiasco of how many tickets. I mean, she can charge whatever the heck she wants. Yeah. Cardi B is doing it this way. Cardi B is capturing it by turning herself into a brand. But, I mean, come on. How many artists are going to become a brand? The vast majority of them are creating a product, a service, really, that creates an atmosphere at an environment. What is your take on vehicles like this for kind of the everyday artist? What lessons are there if if you're you, right, and you're advising fairly small bands getting fairly small gigs on innovative ways to capture money in the current market? How are you thinking about that differently?
Well, I think of a smaller scale and thinking about who your audience is as an independent artist. That's the first thing to address. Like, who are the like-minded individuals that you're trying to reach, what you're trying to capture. And the way that artists are making money is by going on tour because, streaming doesn't make anything. For an artist, that was a hard thing people had to face during the COVID-19 pandemic when live events shut down. It's like that's a lot of their guaranteed revenue, especially from like festival season being shut down when COVID hit. Like that's where a lot of artists bank on making money, is doing those festival runs. And there are smaller sponsorships or like creating a merch line. That's very important. Artists need to create merchandise, and that will make that revenue for them, selling their records, selling physical copies or something unique. I liked the romanticism of an NFT, but the NFT didn't really catch on because there was a barrier to entry. Not many people knew how to get to the NFTs, but the idea of the user experience of locking into that fandom, unlocking a ticket or a t-shirt or a limited edition item from an NFT was a good idea to me, but it didn't necessarily work out. I think that there's a lot more that people need to tap into to think about who their individual audience is to create those type of experiences for their fans to make it unique. And, blockchain is coming into play too,
right.
But
yeah, and sponsorship is a means. It's interesting because you're seeing, there always were artists, and artists went and they made money how they made it. And in this new economy, in this so-called creator economy, we're at the point where a whole bunch of us are becoming artists in different ways. I mean, I am in a way, you are in a way, in the way you create content and try to teach around your product. What's fascinating for the people who grew up with the big dreams and they're just going to move to Nashville or to Austin or whatever, and they're going to chase it, and they're going to become Taylor Swift. It's fascinating because we're sort of building a middle class of artists in a way that maybe is new. We've always had jobbing artists who went and made enough to survive, but the cool thing about the creator economy is there are all these ways to go create kind of a middle class income on being online, on creating different kinds of exposure, on becoming some kind of influencer. All these companies are desperate for content, and these artists can do it in ways that they just weren't thinking about before. I think Cardi B is laying some interesting groundwork for that. So I appreciate you sharing that with us, Julia. For people who want to learn more about your practice in New Orleans, reach out to you, learn more about how they can help artists turn their work into money. What's the best way to connect with you?
They can visit my website, juliaholtlaw.com. They can find me on Instagram and TikTok as well. But just go to my website and reach out to me there.
We'll make sure to include that information over at the Law Insider website. Just go look at lawinsider.com/resources. You'll find this episode and all the others. And if you want to be a guest on the Contract Teardown Show and beat up contracts as we do, just email us. We're at community@lawinsider.com. Thanks again, Julia. We'll see you all next time.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Contract Teardown Show from Law Insider. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. That helps others find the show. We really appreciate it. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode.